breathe down your neck. That is the block party.
Hudson finishes off Kentucky.
Purdue gets to celebrate. They take down number 3.
And the Boilers have done it. They advance to the Sweet 16 for the 5th time.
Welcome back to the Dig City Podcast, brought to you by Franciscan Health, the official medical provider of Purdue Athletics. I'm Corey Palm. He's head coach Dave Shondell. And, Coach, we've got a ton to talk about here today. First of all, congratulations on the postseason berth and hosting the first 2 rounds here in Holloway Gym. It's the thing you battle for all year. It's finally here, and you got goal number 1, I would think, out of the way in getting that top 16 seed.
Yeah, I think our team is really excited about the opportunity that is in front of us. And you're right. From the minute we got beat last year by Oregon in the NCAA Sweet 16, everything starts pointing towards this moment. You know, can we get back into the tournament? And what kind of a seed can we get? And what kind of a draw will we end up with? And there's nothing easy anymore. The evolution of this sport since the time I got here, the first time that as a coach we made the NCAA tournament was in 2004.
Yep.
Okay.
Year 2.
We slid in, and we're one of the last teams, I'm sure, to get in, but we got in the tournament, and it's so much tougher. Not necessarily to get in, but I'm sure it's tough to get in. We just happen to get in on a regular basis.
Right.
But the competition used to be in the first and second round, you wouldn't see a BYU showing up in your bracket. And now here's a team that's a traditional top 10, top 15 team in the country coming in here to play. And just everywhere. I mean, you know, Wisconsin's got Georgia Tech in the second round if they both get there. Texas is playing USC in the second round.
Wow.
Those type of competition, that level of competition wasn't there before, and now there's so many good teams. So the sport's just really blowing up, as we've talked about over and over again. But we're thrilled to be in it. We're especially proud to be hosting. It's something that, you know, you set out the season. That's number 1 goal is to get in the tournament. Number 2 is to host. Number 3 is to host all 4.
You're right.
Which we haven't had that opportunity yet, and because it's a huge advantage to have that. But we are going to Louisville if we can win our first 2. Our direction is through Louisville, and that will allow if we can beat Western Michigan and the winner of Loyola Chicago and BYU. If we can get that far, we go to Louisville, which is a place that a lot of our fans can get to, and I think we'll make some noise if we get that opportunity.
Right, and I believe those matches will be played in the Yum Center. It won't be like the last time we went to Louisville a couple years ago, and they were played in their normal competition gym, which is significantly smaller.
Yeah, much smaller. So I think this will allow a lot of our fans to be able to accompany us down I-65 into Louisville.
Definitely. We'll talk about that hopefully next week. This week, second half of the show, we're going to talk about this year's draw this week, your competition Thursday and hopefully Friday. We'll also talk about the All Big Ten teams and selections from your squad. But before we get to that, the reason you're able to host, it seems, you know, top 10 team all season long, RPI good enough because you took care of business your team took care of business on the floor. And they did so last week again with a big road trip out to Oregon and Washington. And let's talk about that Oregon match, an all-time classic, reverse sweep. Your Boilermakers win in 5 by the skin of their teeth,
yeah.
It seemed. But this team just has that resiliency. I saw you on your post-game interview, and we've talked about it on this show. There is nothing but will to win.
Quit. There's no quit in this team. No
Absolutely.
Quit in this squad. The Oregon match reminded me so much of our match with Nebraska, where when we played Nebraska at their place, and I don't think too many people have forgotten about it.
Nope.
We outplayed them in every facet of the game, with maybe one exception, serving. We had some service errors, but we beat them soundly in hitting percentage, in digs, in blocks, you name it. But we lost the match. Okay, we play Oregon. They beat us in just about every one of those categories, and we win the match.
Yep.
So sometimes it's a reflection of one game being an outlier and maybe one team just hammers. But in that game, that match, they were all pretty close. The first set was maybe 25-20, something like that, Oregon. But after that, they were all nip and tuck. And I just give our team just a ton of credit for the first time to ever play at Oregon for our program, and to go in there where they had a big crowd, and to find a way to just finish that thing off was incredible. And it's a great venue to play in. They've got a very proud tradition. They've been to the Elite Eight the last 2 years. So it was a signature win for our program. And as we talked about off the air, going into it, you think it's going to have such a huge impact on whether you get you get to host or whatever else. Well, Oregon loses that match, and they were behind us to begin with.
Right.
Okay, both in RPI and in the rankings. And I don't know if they're 5 seed or a 4 seed.
They're a 4 seed as well.
Okay.
They're the last.
So
4 seed.
they're hosting, and off they go. So it never means quite as much as you think it does, I guess. But you have to feel that way going into those matches, and we really wanted to win both those, and we found a way to come back and beat Oregon in 3, and then we go to Washington the next. We go there the next night. We don't play till two days later.
Right.
And Washington's a team fighting for their NCAA lives. They're trying to get into the tournament, and it's senior night. So it was a double whammy. So I'm thinking that's going to be a really tough contest. And fortunately for us, Washington does not play well in the first set. And, we get along pretty well in that first one. And then the second one, we get off to a big lead, and I'm thinking this can't be this easy. It's not going to be this easy.
There's no way.
And it wasn't.
Right.
They stormed back, and they tied us at 23. And then we stole a couple points with some great plays to win that second set. We actually run off into the locker room. We're so excited. And then the third set comes around, and they're starting to play really well. And they are a good team. They've got really good size and really good athleticism, and they start to play well. And I think they get to a 22-14 lead in the third set. And when it gets to 22-15, I'm thinking, okay, we need to do something here to kind of maybe get some people out of the game, to get them a break so they can get ready for a fourth set.
Really
Not that I'm
important
waving the white flag,
Sure.
but I've been in this business for a long time, and that is going to be an incredible comeback from that point on. So I thought Taylor Anderson, who's been just a tremendous sophomore setter for us, was starting to get a little frazzled out there. Just there was a lot going on and 2 big matches in a row. So I think, let me get her out for a little bit in this third set so she can sit down and just rest a little bit and then be ready for the fourth. And then Allie Shondell goes into the match, and first set was a little tight behind, but after that she set about 7 or 8 really, really good balls. And we come storming back, and we get momentum, and Raven went back and served some bullets to get us going. Well, we come back, and somehow, and I can't give you all the details of it, but somehow we win that one. Was it 29-27?
29-27.
29-27. And I'm thinking, let's get this thing won and get out of here and get on that plane and get back home on that. We had like a 4.5-hour flight to get back. And that's with tailwind.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
from Seattle. But somehow we managed to do it. It just shows just the absolute toughness that this team has. And when their backs are up against the wall, they seem to play at a higher level.
My next question, you sort of answered it there. I'm going to ask it anyway. When you were on the bench, you just had a 5-set comeback 2 nights before. When you were on the bench and you're up 2-0, but you feel set 3 slipping away, is there a sense that, man, we've got to close this thing out now because you're leaving too much to chance if you let them string it out into 4 and get some belief?
Yeah, at this point in time in my career, I've seen about everything happen, to be honest with you, good and bad.
Yeah.
And so you don't want, if you can close the thing out, you want to close it out. But on the other hand, you also have, with this team, a lot of confidence that, we may lose this one. My thought wasn't that we were going to lose to Washington as much as, do we really want this thing to go 5 sets? And have a knockdown, drag out, and then not get to the airport for another 2 hours.
Yeah.
And let's be clean about this and get things taken care of as fast as possible. And somehow it just happened. And we were really fortunate to get out of the Northwest with 2 wins over 2 NCAA tournament teams that have better histories than what we have. If you look at what they've done in NCAA tournament play and what they managed to do in the Pac-12 before they came in to the Big Ten. So, again, proud of our team and the way that we played and the way we hung in there and made big play after big play to get it done. And sometimes just making that one little move getting Allie into the game. How that changed things the way it did, I'll never know. Okay, but it did. And then when Taylor came back in to close it out, she was really, really good.
Yeah.
She looked like a little bit different person.
That's awesome to get those 2 wins, like you said, and close out the regular season in really strong fashion. 9 of the last 10 matches, your team was victorious. That's, I got to think, great momentum going into the postseason.
Well, you would think so, and you would think that would get the attention of the committee as well. I don't think it. I mean, when you get to the point where we are, it's hard to climb that ladder and get past people unless somebody loses.
Sure, yeah.
And nobody had major losses ahead of us that I can recall. We ended up about where I thought we would be going into the draw on Sunday night. I felt like we were going to be a 12 or a 13. Kansas and us were going to be on that turn.
Yep.
And one was going to be a 3 seed, one was going to be the top 4 seed. And it really wasn't going to matter that much because I also thought we were either going to be going to Louisville or Stanford, and both those teams were going to be there, and that's who we would be playing, one of those two, if we get there. And again, that's a big if.
Right.
We got a lot of work to do.
For sure.
I've been watching Western Michigan until the early mornings, trying to get prepared for a team that I think is unique in how they play. And have finished the season extremely strong with some players playing at a very, very high level for Western Michigan. Western Michigan is a team last year that won the MAC, I think both the league and the tournament. They went into the NCAA tournament, and they went to Louisville, and they beat Auburn,
Okay, right.
who was a seeded team. They beat Auburn in the first match, won the first set from Louisville, who was really, really good a year ago. And then lost the next 3. So this is a team that has almost all those players back, missing, I think, one left side hitter off that team that played quite a bit. That was a good player. But the more you watch him, the more intrigued you are by the ways that they get so much done with a Mid-American Conference team.
Does that make it easier for you to get your team's attention? If
Absolutely.
You can point to,
Oh, no.
last year they upset a seeded
Well,
team.
that, and then this year they beat Marquette. They've beaten 4 NCAA tournament teams. Okay, Marquette, Loyola Marymount. Right now, I can't remember who all the 4 are, but they also beat Michigan State 3-0. We played Michigan State. We happened to beat them 3-0, but there was nothing easy about it.
Yeah.
So I think that letting them know that this is what this team has done. This is what they did last year in the tournament. They've got this veteran leadership, some real tough bulldog type mentalities on that team. And again, the more you watch them, the more impressed you are with this. Sometimes the more you watch a team, the more holes you find.
Right.
The more you watch this team, the better they look. And so I think we're going to be geared up to play them, and I don't think there'll be any excuses one way or the other.
9 Big Ten teams, half the conference got berths. Is that about what you thought it was going to be? A little surprised. I guess you look at the standings, the way the conference ended up. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, I think when the season was over, 9 was the number. I think a couple of them, are feeling pretty good they got in. And I know Illinois was thrilled. You could tell that by watching the team at the celebration that they were excited. When you have been in for a couple of years, it's a pretty good feeling. I know that. But before the season, I felt like we would have more than that. But I think what our conference has to figure out, like most conferences, when you go from 14 teams to 18 teams, how do you schedule? What guidelines do you need to have to make sure you get as many teams in as possible? I've always been a proponent of getting as many teams in as possible from your league. Some of our coaches are all about how can we take care of ourselves first, okay? And certainly we want to do that the best we can. But I've also been on the other side of it. Some of these coaches in our league have always been at the top, okay? Came in at the top, they've been at the top, okay? I think it's about making sure we take care of everybody in our league. And how do we best do that? And I don't think by playing 20 matches in the Big Ten against this level of competition helps you. I don't think that having no guidelines for non-conference play to your league teams is helpful, because we had some teams that went 2-8, 4-7, those kind of things that the last couple of years has really hurt RPI numbers. And as long as that committee is going to look at RPI as the number one factor in picking teams and seeding teams, I really think that when we have our meetings this winter, that there has to be a lot of discussion about how are we going to best position the Big Ten to get 12 teams in? Because, there's a lot of good teams.
There is.
This is the top team, top conference in the country.
Yep.
I don't care what anybody wants to say about it. I've lived it. And we have to do a better job of making it. Indiana was a really good team, just as an example. Really, really good team. Okay, really didn't have hardly any bad losses the entire season. Finished 500, but their RPI was around 80. Wow. Their RPI was around 80. Now, that's not all their fault.
No.
It's not all their fault. And so I think we have to look at why some of the RPIs were as poor as they were, and how as a conference we can give some guidance to making sure that we get more teams in the tournament, because even an Indiana team or a UCLA, Michigan,
yeah, that's
all those teams are better than, I'm guessing, 25 teams that are in the tournament.
right.
Now, I know that a lot of those are automatic bids, and they deserve those opportunities. But even some of those teams, I think, are better than a lot of the at-large bid teams too.
We've talked all around it. Anything else about the regular season you want to tie a bow on before we move on to the postseason?
16-4 in the league. In 2011, we had 16 wins.
Yep.
It wasn't until, I'm not sure there's ever been a time. I don't think, back when Carroll Dewey had those great teams back in the 70s and 80s, I don't think they were playing that many conference matches. Okay, they weren't playing 20 conference matches. So
Right.
the 16, I think, ties the most wins ever for a Purdue team, with that Ariel Turner-led team
With that,
in
you said
2011. Does that sound right? Or does that
That
sound wrong?
sounds right. I'm pulling it up. Yep, they were you guys were 16-4, 29-5 that year as well.
Yeah, and
That does
so
sound
so
correct.
that's a real positive thing.
Yeah.
We go 25-6, which is just a really good season. Playing, we thought our non-conference schedule was super tough. Turned out a couple of those teams, didn't have the seasons that we had hoped that they would. Another reason why our RPI was 14 instead of 8 or 9
Yep.
is all about how your opponents do with their record. So nonetheless, we're happy to be in the tournament. We feel like we've had a great year. You can always find some things wrong with what teams do, and you can find some things that they've done really, really well. This team has competed. They've gotten better. We're looking at things this week to make ourselves better for the tournament. We're making some changes in what we're doing defensively and offensively.
Okay.
So, people aren't going to be super prepared for everything that we're going to do.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about the tournament after the break.
The Dig City Podcast is brought to you by Franciscan Health, the official medical provider of Purdue Athletics. At Franciscan, we are inspiring health. Now back to the show.
Okay, Coach, we've talked all around it. You've mentioned Western Michigan's very good. Let's take a look at this draw this weekend. You got 3 teams coming to town to play on Beelan Court. You've got the Western Michigan Broncos, Loyola Chicago, who is a familiar club, and then, as you mentioned, BYU comes in as the 5 seed. Just overall thoughts on the draw and those 3 competitors.
Well, Western Michigan won the MAC tournament. They beat Ball State in the finals 3-0. They beat, I think it was Bowling Green in the semis. They beat them 3-2. Beat Buffalo, I believe, 3-1.
Yep.
So that was the route that they had in reverse order. But they beat 3 of the better teams in the MAC to get there. They deserve it. They've earned it. They won the league a year ago. A veteran team that is really good offensively. Their offensive numbers over the last 8 to 10 matches are ridiculous. And so, defensively, we're going to have to be very, very good. We're going to have to serve the ball extremely tough to try to take them out of some of the things that they would like to do. Their setter is really, really good. Was the freshman of the year her freshman year, and she's in her 5th year, and she's been all MAC first team all 4 of those years since her freshman season. Just makes them go. Does a lot of really good things. They've got some good arms, some good athletes. They're not undersized. They're not going to look a whole lot different than most Big Ten teams that our fans are used to, because they have size and athleticism and that experience level. So they're going to be a handful. Absolutely. It's a really tough first-round match, in my opinion, as Auburn found out a year ago. And then the other match, you've got BYU, who's a traditional top 10 to top 15 program that lost more this year than normal, but they finished strong. They knocked off Kansas at Kansas the last weekend, and then beat Kansas State as well on the road. So that was a really good finish for them. So they're clearly playing well at the right time. They've got good depth. They've got good athletes. They're super well coached. And then Loyola of Chicago beat Dayton in the championship match of the Atlantic 10. And Dayton only lost 2 matches all season. I think one might have been to Marquette in the non-conference, and then they lost this last match of the season. So huge win for Loyola. That's probably the only way they get in the NCAA tournament, but it works. If you win the league tournament, you're in. And we are familiar with Loyola. We played them the last 2 seasons. They've got some really good athletes. They're not big. They're not a real big team, but they are good. That's the only team right now I haven't had a chance to take a look at yet. That will come here still this afternoon. But they handle the ball well. They compete well. They came into our gym a year ago and beat us in 5. And we had a pretty good team a year ago. Now, we were young at that point, really young at that point. Yeah. But they did come into Holloway Gym and get a win. So they'll be comfortable when they roll in here to West Lafayette. But it's a good field, and one of the better fields, I think, in the 8 or 9 times that we've hosted during my career here. This is as good a field as any. There was one year we had to beat Louisville and Kentucky in the same weekend. That was pretty tough. But this is going to be a challenge.
Goes back to what you were saying earlier. There are years past where you get a couple teams coming in, a couple opponents coming in that, maybe everybody's serious at this point, but maybe it's not as heavy a lift to get out of opening weekend. You also get weekends where you've got Louisville and Kentucky coming in, and those are your first 2 round opponents. It's just the game evolves from year to year, and one thing that's been pretty tried and true is the Boilermakers will be in the mix for hosting that opening weekend.
Well, and the great thing about this Thursday, Friday, we put tickets on sale at 10 o'clock yesterday, and in 1 minute, they were sold out.
10:01.
They were sold out.
Unbelievable.
Now, our facility that we'll play in, Holloway Gym, holds about 2,500. Some of those tickets were already determined to go to other schools and so forth. But bam, that's pretty impressive that you can sell out a regional tournament in 60 seconds. So thanks to our fans and thanks to our ticket people for however that happened, electronically or however it worked. Because I had a lot of people reaching out to me saying, I don't have a ticket. I can't believe they sold out in 60 seconds.
Right.
Well, that's the volleyball world we're living in now.
It is. It's a good place to be in, and it's going to lead to more discussions down the road, I'm sure, about venues and whatnot. That early match on Thursday, BYU versus Loyola, should be a heck of a match. Just to put a point on how good Loyola's win against Dayton was, Dayton lost their conference championship game and still got a 5 seed in a region.
Yeah.
That's how good Dayton is. Loyola's won 12 in a row.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a layup for BYU either.
No, it won't be. BYU is going to have to be, just like we are, extremely well prepared to play. Put all of your eggs in one bucket for that one and make sure you're ready to go. You won't see Friday night, okay? At least in the NCAA tournament you won't. I think we're all going to see Friday night, but we'd like to be playing in the tournament. And so you got to be prepared for the first one. Everybody that's been through the tournament knows that, and both those coaches have got some experience at these levels.
Definitely. One last word on the Oregon win. It didn't seem to matter a whole lot. One place it did make a difference was your Boilermakers ended up with the 13 overall seed, the Ducks the 16 overall seed, so they feed into
Penn State.
Pittsburgh.
Oh, Pittsburgh.
They
number
feed
one.
in-
Yeah, they go to the number one seed.
for the potential Sweet 16 matchup, whereas you get Louisville, not a 1 seed's a 1 seed.
Yeah, Louisville and Pitt have played nose to nose a couple of times this season, so there's just not that much difference.
Right.
For us, if we can get there, the benefit is it's close.
Yep.
And I think we'll hear our Purdue fans in the Yum Center if that's indeed where we're playing that regional round.
We'll worry about that next week.
Yeah.
And focus on that one match against Western Michigan. I don't want you to give away the story here, but who's looking good right now in practice?
Well, we just had the one practice. We got back early Saturday morning around 3:15 in the morning. And they had Saturday off, they had Sunday off. We came back and practiced yesterday. We needed to get some things done. As I mentioned, we're making some adjustments in some of the things that we're doing to try to be better. But I thought Taylor Anderson had a really good practice yesterday of running the show. Allie Horning continues to impress with her defense and improved passing. Passing's an area that we have really gotten so much better in, which has allowed us to win 9 of our last 10 and about 14 of our last 15, or 14 of our last 16 Big Ten matches, which is not easy to do.
Speaking of Big Ten, all Big Ten teams came out today. 2 of your Boilermakers on the first team, 2 more on the second team. Congratulations to Raven Colvin and Eva Hudson on their first team selections. Chloe Chacoin and Taylor Anderson earned second team honors, and your sportsmanship honoree is Sydney Yim. 24 members on the first team and 2 Boilermakers. Just what's your first blush thoughts on Eva and Raven?
Well, I think it's a hard team to make.
Yeah.
Even with the additional spots. Last year, I think it was 18 players, unless there was a tie, and then it might go to 19 or 20. With the addition of UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon, the coaches and the Big Ten decided we should move that to 24, which I think is fair. But even with that, a lot of really good players did not make all Big Ten. As you mentioned off the air, Nebraska had 5 players and Penn State 4.
Yep.
So 9 of the 24 came from 2 schools, the 2 schools that tied for the Big Ten championship. So I think it goes without saying, you want to get players on all Big Ten, go win the championship.
Yeah.
Because that makes a big difference. And then after that, you had Minnesota get 3 on there, and they finished. Where did they finish in the?
They finished
the pool? Right behind us.
3 spots below you.
Oh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They finished 7th. 13
But
and 7.
just being honest, I don't have a lot of. Nothing jumps out at me and says, why is that person on there ahead of somebody else? I'm just surprised at Chloe Chacoin, who I think is one of the best 6-rotation players in all of America.
Right.
I watch her every day. She amazes me every day. Hitting numbers weren't as good this year as they were a year ago because people were probably better prepared to play her. But everything else she did was better. Her serving, her defense, her passing, her leadership. So I'm thrilled. Eva Hudson, who led the league in hitting, digs per set, I think was second of all left side hitters in hitting percentage. Great passer, great defender, great competitor. She's not an all unanimous pick on here.
Somebody
I think
didn't vote for her.
There were 6 or 7 that were unanimous picks. Somebody left Eva Hudson off the list. Now that could have just been an honest error.
Could have been.
Because I looked at the way this thing was made out, and it wasn't that easy to do. But just a couple of things that are a little surprising. But certainly to have Eva on the list is great. And who was our other pick? Raven Colvin had a rock star season. I mean, just an unbelievable season for Raven. And they did change the Defensive Player of the Year to a Libero of the Year.
They did.
And I'm not saying that Raven would have gotten the award had they stayed with the past philosophy of just being a defensive player. But she did blow up all the Big Ten, all the Purdue records in blocking, and just had a great year. But she wasn't capable of making the all libero team.
No, she wore the wrong color jersey for that.
And so there's really not a defensive award for a middle blocker or any blocker for that matter anymore. So that's something that had changed. But overall, we got then we also had Chloe on the second team and Taylor Anderson on the second team. Allie Horning, Lourdes Myers, nowhere to be found on that list. Yet I thought were 2 players. If you look at their numbers, I think Allie Horning was second in the league in digs, which I think has something to do with the strength of a player, especially a defensive player. Had a tremendous season. Serving got stronger. Lourdes has just gotten better every week of the season. So anyway, that's just kind of the way it broke down. But all freshman team, we didn't get anybody on there. I thought Ryan McAleer, her passing and defense was superb this year. But again, I think only 9 players on the all-freshman team. That was a limit you could put on there. And
only one libero.
yeah, and there's nobody on there that
Yes.
I don't think is deserving.
No.
But I certainly thought that Ryan was. And then you go to the sportsmanship, and you've got Sydney M., who's been just an amazing individual for us for 4 years. She redshirted her first year thinking that she was going to probably stay here for 5, and then that plan changed a little bit. But she's been just a tremendous backup setter for us and great in the practice gym, and very fitting that she would get that award.
That's great. Congratulations to all 5 ladies who earned those honors, and can't wait to see what you have in store for us the weeks ahead. So.
Well, it's an exciting time, and we hope that our fans will continue to jump on board. And it's one thing to have your ticket. It's another thing to make sure you're in that facility and you're making a lot of noise and being a factor. And I know our block party, our student fans will be great. And we hope this is something that can last for a while. But right now it's one match at a time, and the Mid-American Conference has always produced really good teams. And to open up with a team that, as again, I'm very intrigued with, I think that helps us be well prepared for them.
6:30 on Thursday. You can watch the game on ESPN Plus. If you didn't get one of those coveted tickets, you get there in time. The first match is 3 hours before. At 3:30 is the Loyola BYU match. Typically, they space them out well enough, so there won't be a lot of overlap. You should start on time. You never know.
Yeah.
Get there on time. Don't count on
Right.
don't count on a delay. Get to your seat and make some noise, Coach. Good luck this week.
Thank you. And the Big Ten did well. I mean, just 9 teams, but 2 of the top 4 seeds that will get a chance to host the first 4 matches if they continue to win. And I think it says a lot for, you finish 4th in that league, which is what we did. And the losses went to the 2 teams that tied for first, and then Wisconsin, who came in here and blew the doors off Mackey Arena. But nonetheless, I'm really happy with where we're at, and it's just now it's tournament time, and this is why we're here.
Let's go get it.
Boiler up, man.